Greetings, YouTube. Mandarin has decided to join us today. I have no idea if she'll be sticking around. She seems to be very aware of the world. My wife and I decided today, because it was raining and there weren't going to be any kind of community yard sales, which was our first plan for the day, to go see some art shows done by the students of the New Hampshire Art Academy here in Manchester, or Institute, I should say. And they were being held in 3 different locations. So we went to the first location, which was the actual institute itself, and we looked around. They had some really nice things. I picked up a couple of cards from a couple of artists that I think were quite good, and one does poster-style prints that were very reminiscent of billboard banners, which were quite interesting. Then we went to the second location, and we looked at the entire display. And before we had started checking out the art, my wife had to use a restroom, so I'm waiting for her, and I'm wandering around the student lobby, which was empty of people. And they had a number of ceramic things on display that weren't part of the art show that day. They were just student pieces that just happened to be there for people to look at. And one particular piece caught my eye. Ceramics often does that. I'll see a piece of art from across the room, it'll draw me in, it will just call to me. And I didn't see anyone around to ask about it. It wasn't labeled. It was dusty. It had been there for quite a while. But I thought, okay, I'll ask someone on the way out. So we went and looked at 3 floors worth of artwork, and some of it was very good. I was quite impressed. Even by some of the students that were just freshmen and sophomore, there was some very nice work there. And I spoke to one of the instructors, and he said I should speak to the person down in the shop, Maureen. So I went down to the shop, and while I'm walking in there, I don't see anybody. And as I'm walking out of a hallway, a man passes me. I keep moving, and I get my wife, taking my wife aside, and I look at my wife and I say, well, that answers one question. She looks at me somewhat quizzically, and I said, Mo is still alive. Mo is the scoutmaster I had in Scouts. He is the man that sexually abused me. And he walked right past me. I stopped for a moment, I collected my thoughts. I still wanted to ask about the vase I'd seen, the piece. So I went into the shop again, and that's when I discovered that that's where Mo works. He runs the art shop for the Institute. I left. We left the show. We went out to the car, and I sat in the car behind the driver's wheel for a moment, gathered my thoughts, and realized that this was an opportunity on more than one level that would never come again. So I told my wife that could she please stay here. I should have explained further, but at the moment I was kind of caught up in my own thoughts. I got out of the car and I went back to the shop, and I asked Mo, without saying his name, I just said I was interested in a piece I had seen. I took him, we went to the lounge, and I took him to the piece, and he asked me to get it down because I'm taller than he is. And I handed it to him. And he said it appears to be a student piece, and it was from '08, so it wasn't a current student. And he said that the person he needs to speak to, Maureen, was guiding a tour. There were tours all over the building at the time. Would I mind waiting a few minutes? I said no, I wouldn't. And I hadn't revealed who I was, and I hadn't really commented him at all. That's when he stopped, and he looked at me, rather intently in the eyes. And then he said my name. I said, very good. And I smiled. And he said, well, how have you been? I said, I'm doing okay. And I wasn't lying. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I work in a factory. He said, that's good. That's good that you're working. He said, that's a good boy. And that was an echo from the past. And then he went off and he found Maureen, and he came back and he said that it was a piece that had been done by a student, and the student had left it behind. The student was long gone, and that's why it had never been taken anywhere else. And I asked what they wanted for it. I offered them $5 because, it's a piece that was abandoned. And he declined the money, and he just handed me the piece, and he said, here, take it. And he didn't look at me when he did it. And I took the piece, and I fought my way through a crowd because there was this tour going on in the art shop, to get outside and got in the car and joined my wife, who was rather concerned at that point. And we sat and we talked for a bit. And I said to her that I was a whole person when I walked into that store, into that art show. And I was a whole person when I walked out of that art show. And I was standing next to the tree of the world, solid and grounded. When I left my therapy session last Thursday with my therapist, Stephen, I looked him in the eyes and I said, "I'm going to be okay." And he smiled and he nodded, because he knew I was going to be okay. I am going to be okay. I am no longer a slave to the echoes of the past. The ghosts are gone. It was interesting. It was an eventful day. And I have a piece of ceramic to show for it. The artist in question, I can't read the name. Apparently it didn't fire very clearly. That's why you see that kind of broken section around. It didn't seem to have come clean when it was firing, which is probably why they left it behind. But it spoke to me when I saw it, and I really liked the proportions and the shape. And Mo mentioned that I had good taste, and he's correct. I do have good taste. I commented to my wife that I have good taste, because, you know, I was smart enough and had enough good taste to marry her.